Hey, what is going on YouTube? Are you interested in learning on how to automate your AWS infrastructure with just a few lines of code? Well, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to cover CloudFormation, and that's going to allow you to spin up multiple resources via code. And that's what we're going to do today. So let's get right into it. All right, first, before we go into AWS, go ahead and open up Visual Studio Code or anything that allows you to write some YAML. And what we're going to do is we're going to first start off with specifying the template format version. Although this is not necessary or required, it is something that I just do by practice, because going down the road, if it ever changes and I'm already used to that format or something like that, I definitely want to be sure that I'm defining that here. So right now this does not change at all. It is going to be the same until, like I said, AWS comes out with a different version, and it is not necessary, but I just do it by practice. Next, you're going to do a description. And in here, we could just say something simple, just like CloudFormation to simulate lab environment. Next, we're going to define our resources, and we're going to start off with something simple. So first thing that we want to do is we want to create VPC, number 1. Let's say we're going to have multiples, right? So we're going to do VPC 1, and then we're just going to do the type. And all of this can be found in the documentation. So if you head over to Google and you just type in EC2 CloudFormation, as you can see right here, here's the type, and it'll break it down for you. So you got your type, EC2 instance, and so on and so forth. Just an example. So in this case, we're just doing AWS EC2, and we are defining the VPC. Next, we're going to go ahead and use the properties, and we're going to define our CIDR block, and we'll just do 10.0.0. We'll do 10.0.1.0 with the 24, giving us 254 addresses within that subnet. And then we'll do enable DNS support. All right, so what we did is in Visual Studio Code, we defined our AWS template format version. We defined a description for this template. And inside of resources, we are creating our first resource, which is going to be a VPC. And that's going to be this type here with this CIDR block here. We got to make sure that we put a true there. So we enable these two properties of the VPC, and then we're going to name it test VPC, test lab VPC1 using the tags property. So let's go ahead and we're going to save that. Let's head back over to AWS, log into your AWS portal, find CloudFormation. If you have not recently visited it, go to the top and just search CloudFormation. We're here on the right side. Go ahead and click on Create Stack with New Resources. And we're going to select Choose an Existing Template. And then down here at the bottom, you're going to select Upload a Template File. Next, you're going to click on Upload a Template File. All right. And I also just noticed that I did not indent. So make sure that after resources, you go ahead and indent it so it's following the right format, and then resave it and then upload it. So here is our YAML file uploaded to AWS. Click on Next. We're going to provide a stack name, and we can just say lab environment. Next. Here you have different options available to you. You could assign a role, some tags. This is pretty important. So you have rollback all stack resources. So if the stack fails, you have the option to preserve any successful provision resources, or you can roll back all stack resources to the last known stable state. So I stick with this generally because if I deploy a stack and it does not complete, I do not want to keep some resources there and some not. So I just delete it all, fix the YAML file, and then redeploy that stack. But that's up to you. Then you have the delete newly created resources during rollback. Again, pretty much what I just said. Use the deletion policies or delete all newly created resources, depending on what you want to do. And then you have some advanced options down here. For this lab, this is not necessary, but this will be covered in a future video. So go ahead and click on Next. And that's pretty much it. So now we are on the review and create. And we're just going to go ahead and review it all. And we're going to click on Submit. All right, so this is a good way to show you what happens during rollback, just because I did a simple typo. So as you can see, it'll say rollback complete. And then if we went over to VPCs, you would not see this resource created. And if we head over to events, we'll kind of get more information as to why it might have failed. And you'll notice that it says likely root cause. And you'll see properties validation failed for resource VPC1 with message CIDR block is not permitted. This is not the correct syntax. So if we were to look that up, in Google and we did VPC AWS CloudFormation, like I said, documentation is pretty straightforward. You're going to see that we have a capital C and a capital B, and here we did not do that. So let's go ahead and fix that up. So we had just fixed the typo. We're going to go back and go back to stacks. As you can see, we have our one that's rollback complete. You cannot update it because it does not have a previous known state. So all we're going to do is we're just going to delete that stack. It'll be a click deletion process. Once it is deleted, go ahead again and click on create stack. With new resources, we're going to follow the same steps. All right, as you can see here on the left side, you'll have a status update saying create complete. Here's the refresh button. It also auto refreshes, I think, every so often. If you go over here to the right side, again, it is not refreshed over here. Go ahead and click on that button, and you'll see that we have our create in progress. This is the initial initiation of this process. And then we have the VPC1 create in process. And as you can see, it is now completed. So if we go over to VPCs, you can see that we now have our test lab VPC1 with the subnet of 10.0.1.0. The CIDR block is now deployed to our environment. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and just update that stack. So let's say we want to create new resources within that stack and keep it all together. Maybe it's just part of all that same lab environment. Like I said, this is going to be just an introductory video, and I'm going to go more in depth going forward in different videos. And so the next thing that we want to do, let's say we want to add an EC2 instance to this stack. We're going to do something as simple as this. So we're going to do instance 1. And then again, we're going to make sure we tab it in, type. All right, so we're actually going to add a few more things just because I already have it, and it'll make more sense. So we have defined our instance 1. We have our type, EC2 instance, and then we're going to define some properties. We have instance type, key name, which is already defined and created within our AWS environment, and that is the name of it. Image ID, this is important. Let me go back to that. So especially if you're the only way you could get into it is going to be through the key. So you definitely want to have a key that's defined, otherwise you're not going to be able to get into that EC2 instance. Image ID, this is going to be the AMI that we're using, the subnet ID, which we're going to create right now, along with the security groups. So let's go ahead and we're going to just copy and paste this. Like I said, I already have defined these previously before getting into this. So just to make it quicker, and we'll kind of cover it together. So here you got your subnet 1. So here we have subnet 1, which is defined here. I'm going to go ahead and just paste this too, just in case I have any other typos in here. Yeah, it looks like I already had some typos, so good. I'm glad I did that. And then we're going to grab our security group. This is all going to be in the description below in my GitHub. You can go ahead and grab that. So we had defined the subnet. Here's the type here, again, with some properties. And what we're going to do is we're going to define or assign a VPC to the subnet, and we're going to do VPC1, and we're going to use the reference. So that's going to call out VPC1 up here. Next, you have the CIDR block, which we're going to change, and that's going to be within the range of the VPC. In this case, we just use the same CIDR block. Obviously, we can make this smaller. It's a subnet. We have the availability zone. And then we have some tags, which is just going to be the name. Then we have a security group. And what we want in this is we want to allow SSH. So we're going to do type, group name. This is how you name the security group when you look into AWS console. Group description, we're going to allow SSH for VPC1. We're going to again define that VPC or assign that VPC to the security group. These are the ingress rules or the inbound rules, and we have IP protocol, and we're going to use TCP from port 22 to port 22. So only on port 22 are we going to allow all traffic inbound for this lab. And then outbound, we're going to allow port 0 to port 65535. So that's all TCP ports on all traffic, on all IP addresses. So what we're going to do is we're going to head back over to our CloudFormation service. And we're going to click or highlight our test environment, click on update. And if we don't have any typos, we're going to go ahead and just click on upload a template file, choose file, and select the file that we've been using. Let me go ahead and see what's going on there real quick. All right, so I noticed that just again was a typo. It was not indented. Make sure they're indented. And then we got uploaded template files. Make sure that you go ahead and select it after you resave that file. Click on next, next. Let's go down to the bottom, next. We verified it, submit it. All right, and then it's going to be the same thing essentially. Now you can see the subnet 1 that was created, instance security group 1 that was created. So if we head over to our EC2, we should now see that we have an instance running because it was deployed. So we have our test lab instance 1. If we go ahead and click on that, we have our public or our private IP address. We did not define any public IP address, something that we'll cover in another video. But if we head over to our networking, we're going to be able to see that we have our test lab VPC1 and our subnet test lab VPC1. So if we click on that, that's going to be the subnet that we had just defined, test lab subnet VPC1, and that was obviously assigned to the test lab VPC1. All right, and then the last thing to do, probably one of the most important things or the best things about CloudFormation and using infrastructure as code, is that if we go back to our CloudFormation service and we highlight our stack and we go ahead and just click on delete the environment, it's going to say delete in progress. And once that is completed, all the resources that we had just defined and created are now going to be deleted. Sometimes you will get an error saying that it cannot delete it. Different reasons why that might happen, but it'll tell you what you need to delete. But in a lab environment, it's perfect because you can spin up your resources and then you can delete them just as easy. So that's going to be it for today's video. I just wanted to get a quick introduction to CloudFormation infrastructure as code within the AWS environment. I do plan to cover this pretty in detail going forward. The reason being is because if you are going to be a cloud engineer or deal with anything related to the cloud, I must put it, is that you will most likely need to know how to do this type of stuff. And I think it is very useful, especially when trying to spin up resources quickly and efficiently, because obviously you don't want to, maybe you miss a step when you're deploying an EC2 instance and now you got to redo everything all again. Instead, you can just go ahead and just adjust your code to deploy that key or whatever the case may be. So that is the point of this video. Now, again, it was just an introductory video. I hope you were able to take something away. Next week's video, we're going to go, or I don't know about next week, but at least soon in the near future, we're going to go a little bit more in depth and kind of build upon this, this lab that we have here. So I hope you were able to take something away. As always, never stop learning.